But it does have a little bit of a twist to it. We'll talk about that here in a minute, but just turn to your notes, number 4, last one in chapter 5. So it says 3x cubed minus 4x plus 8 divided by x plus 7. So with this question right here, if you'll look at the dividend, which is the first polynomial, do you notice it's in descending order, but one of the degrees is missing? Yeah. Which one's not there?
X squared.
Yeah, so what we're going to do in a case like that is we need to have a placeholder for that degree. And so I'm going to just do a quick rewrite. I'll just do it over here on the right side. I'm going to write it as, this would really be 3x cubed plus 0x squared minus 4x plus 8 divided by x plus 7. So now if you look at this, by putting in a 0x squared, what is 0 times x squared? 0. So I have not really changed the value of this at all. I've just added 0, which as you guys know doesn't really do anything to change the value. What I've done is I've inserted a placeholder. Now I want you guys to understand why that's important. But Avery, why don't you ask your question first? Okay, let me explain why that's important. We use placeholders all the time, and maybe we don't realize their importance because we use them all the time, but I want you to think about this. With place values, let's say for instance, I was going to offer to pay you, listen up please, you're going to sell me your car. Let's say you're going to sell me your car for $10,500, right? So $10,500. Now all those zeros in there are extremely important. They are. You could look at them, if you look at the 0x squared and say, man, why does it have to be in there? Why is that so important? I would say that it's just as important as the zeros in $10,500 because if you say, well, I don't think those zeros really need to be there, I'm just going to go with this. I'm just going to leave the zeros out. Well, all of a sudden I'm paying you $15 for your car, which is a far cry from $10,500. And so zeros being placeholders, I think, are far more important than we might give them credit for. And so when we're doing division, we're going to for sure want to have all of the degrees, all of the place values, if you will, represented instead of not. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is write this out in the classic way of writing division. We're going to use some long division here, so it's going to be x plus 7 divided into, it's going to be 3x to the third plus 0x squared minus 4x plus 8. Let's try that one again. 8. It is a placeholder. In order for this, so it's essentially this. In order for this process to work, we have to have all of the place values represented. Otherwise, we're going to be trying to add unlike terms, and things are going to fall apart. So this is basically, the reasoning for this is, in order for this system to even work, you have to have all the placeholders, all the degrees represented. It's just a functional thing more than anything else. I'll put it like this. If you don't have it, this method does not work. So that's why you have to have it. All right, so let's review. At this point, this will be just like yesterday. Let's review what we do here. The first thing I'm going to do is start peeling away all of the lead terms as I go. So I'm going to do 3x cubed divided by x. And if you want to write that off to the side to just sort of remind yourself of what that might be, what's 3x cubed divided by x? 3x squared, that's right. So we'll write the first part of our quotient right there. So 3x squared, I agree with you on that. All right, so once we have the first term in our quotient, we need to multiply. What do we multiply the 3x squared times? And as we do that, what property gets used? That's right. So I'm going to multiply this 3x squared through the divisor. So distributed times x plus 7. Let's see if we can write this down below. So 3x squared times x would be 3x cubed. 3x squared times 7 is 21x squared. So plus 21x squared. Most folks get pretty good at this so far, but the next step is usually the step that we have to slow down a little bit and think. We're going to be subtracting. So I put parentheses around that last binomial that I just created, and I put a minus sign out front. And I usually will point to this with my pen or pencil and think about what I'm doing. So I'll highlight it in a beautiful purple color. Here we go. Here's what I'm thinking. 3x cubed minus 3x cubed. What's the answer to that? And if that's something other than 0, we have a problem, right? Because we want each lead term to be subtracted out each time. But then we also have 0x squared minus 21x squared. What is that? There we go. Negative 21x squared. So do you see why we need to have that placeholder in there? I hope you do. If we don't have it in there, we're going to have an issue with like terms with it in there. We don't. All right, so we've completed one cycle. There's still a little more to go, though. How do we get going with the next cycle? Bring down, yeah. So we bring down the negative 4x, and now we restart with our cycle of division. So what I do here, highlighted in a lovely shade of green, I go negative 21x squared divided by x. So just like before, if you want to write this off to the side to kind of think about what this answer might be, that's fine. But essentially it'd be x to the 2 minus 1, right? So minus 21x, agree. Okay, so just like before, now we're going to multiply, and in multiplying here we're going to be using the distributive property. So how about negative 21x times x plus 7? What would we get there? Yep, and then what's 21 times 7? 147. Yep. So minus 147x. So this is going to present some challenges because we are about to subtract. There's a lot of minus signs, so be very careful. I'll highlight what I'm thinking in orange. So here we go. Negative 21x squared minus 21x squared. What's that? Because it's really negative 21 plus 21, right? So if you get something other than 0, again, we got an issue. But we're good. All right, so negative 4x minus negative 147. What do you think that'll be? Negative, yeah. Negative 143.
Why would it be negative?
Or not negative 143. Hey, how about positive 143x? That's right. Sorry. Okay, so positive 143x. How many more cycles do we have left?
One.
Just one, right? So, as you just mentioned, we bring down the 8. And if it's okay with you, can I leave up this final cycle to you? Let's see if you can complete it and finish it all the way out. I'll do it with you here in a second, and then you'll get a chance to practice. What I'm going to do next is I'm going to do 143x divided by x, and that gives me 143. So plus 143. And then like before, I'm going to distribute that 143 throughout the, sorry? So, yeah, good question. So it's 143x over x. And so it'd be 143x to the 0, and x to the 0 is just 1. So it'd be 143. Or you could think of the x's as just canceling out. Some people would do that. Okay, so 143 times x is 143x. 143 times 7, it'd be 980, is it 1001?
Yeah.
1001. So plus 1001. And now we subtract. You see the 143x's will subtract out, right?
Yeah.
Okay. And then 8 minus 1001 would be negative 993, right? Okay. So then I'll put that as my remainder. So put it as plus negative 993 over x plus 7. So what I am highlighting in red here is our final answer. It's called the quotient. And that's that. So, like anything else, this requires practice. So we're going to practice right now. Any questions, though, before we move on to that? All right. Go ahead, Amelia. Yes.
The last step,
Yes.
I got confused on that. Where you have
So down here?
14, yeah, that, I got confused on that.
Okay, so let's go back then. So where that step came from was my 143, right?
Yeah, the only part that I really got confused on was the 8 and the 1001.
Okay, so and then the answer to that?
Yeah.
Okay, So what I'm doing, I'll highlight it again up here. So I'm really doing 143x minus 143x. And like I said before, that's 0, right?
Yeah.
So go through the same process with the other numbers. So that would be 8 minus 1001.
Okay.
So, if you wanted to sketch that off to the side, 8 minus 1001, that's 8 subtracting a much bigger number than 8, right?
Yeah.
And so it has to be negative.
Okay.
So you could think of it as 8 plus negative 1001.
Could you distribute the negative to both of those?
Yeah, they go to both.
Okay.
And that's why I highlight it the way that I do. So I'm going to say 8 minus 1001.
Okay.
Here, I'll highlight it in a different color so I can just emphasize. So I go 8 minus 1001. That effectively allows me to distribute the minus sign. And there are some people that would teach that would say, all right, distribute it and add. I just find that it gets really confusing. So I just say, okay, what are we really doing? We're doing this minus that.
Okay.
Is that good?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Anybody else with a follow-up question of any kind? Okay, we're going to take the rest of our class period to practice this.